A true relationship is not loud promises or perfect moments, it's quiet loyalty. It's staying when walking away would be easier. It's choosing understanding over ego, honesty over comfort, and growth over control. In a world that confuses attachment with love and attention with commitment, many of us forget what a real connection actually feels like. Today isn't about fantasy, it's about truth, about the kind of relationship that doesn't drain you, but grounds you, the kind that doesn't demand you lose yourself, but helps you become more of who you are. Let's talk about what a true relationship really is and why it begins with courage, respect, and self-worth. A true relationship begins where pretending ends. It starts the moment you stop performing and allow yourself to be seen without armor, not the polished version you show the world, not the one shaped to be liked or chosen, but the real one, the tired one, the unsure one, the one still figuring things out. Most people think relationships begin with attraction, with chemistry, with excitement, but those are just sparks. Sparks are easy, they happen everywhere. What's rare is the fire that keeps burning when there's nothing left to impress. A true relationship doesn't ask you to be perfect, it asks you to be honest. And honesty is uncomfortable. It exposes fears, flaws, and contradictions we spend our lives trying to hide. But without that exposure, connection never goes deeper than the surface. Illusion feels good at first, it's seductive, it tells you what you want to hear, it mirrors your dreams and avoids your wounds. But illusion has an expiration date. It collapses the moment life applies pressure, when stress shows up, when disappointment arrives, when silence replaces excitement. Truth, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't rush. It doesn't sell fantasies. It doesn't disappear when things get hard. Truth stays. It listens. It adapts. A true relationship is built on truth not because truth is easy, but because lies are heavy, and carrying them eventually breaks everything underneath. In a true relationship, you don't feel like you're auditioning. You don't feel like love is something you earn by behaving correctly. There's no constant fear of saying the wrong thing, no anxiety about being replaced the moment you show weakness. Love isn't conditional on your usefulness or your performance. It doesn't threaten to leave every time you disagree. It doesn't punish honesty with distance. Truth creates safety, and safety is what allows love to breathe. Many people confuse intensity with depth. They think passion is proof of connection. But intensity can come from insecurity, from fear of loss, from unresolved wounds. It can feel overwhelming, addictive, consuming. A true relationship doesn't consume you. It steadies you. It doesn't pull you away from yourself. It brings you back. You don't lose your identity to keep the peace. You don't shrink to be accepted. You don't silence your instincts to avoid conflict. Truth invites dialogue, not domination. Being truthful doesn't mean being cruel. It doesn't mean saying everything without care. Truth in a real relationship is guided by respect. It's knowing when to speak and when to listen. It's choosing clarity over control. It's expressing needs without blaming. It's admitting mistakes without defensiveness. It's taking responsibility instead of hiding behind excuses. Truth doesn't weaponize honesty to win arguments. It uses honesty to understand each other better. A true relationship allows space for imperfection. It understands that growth is messy, people change, they evolve, they stumble, and love doesn't panic at that. It doesn't demand consistency at the cost of authenticity. It allows room for becoming. Illusion demands you stay the same so the fantasy doesn't break. Truth allows you to grow even if it means redefining the relationship along the way. When truth is present, silence isn't threatening. You don't need constant reassurance to feel secure. You trust what's there even when words aren't spoken. You trust actions more than promises. You trust patterns more than apologies. And trust isn't blind, it's earned, slowly, through consistency, through showing up even when it's inconvenient, through choosing integrity over ease. A true relationship doesn't avoid difficult conversations. It understands that discomfort is part of intimacy. Avoidance feels peaceful, but it creates distance. Truth creates friction, but it also creates closeness. When two people are willing to sit in discomfort together without running or attacking, something real forms, something resilient, something that doesn't collapse at the first sign of conflict. You know you're in a true relationship when you can disagree without fear of abandonment, when conflict doesn't turn into emotional punishment, when love isn't withdrawn as a form of control. Disagreements become conversations, not battles. Different perspectives are explored, not erased. You don't need to win, you need to understand. And understanding doesn't mean agreement, it means respect. Truth also means seeing each other clearly, without projection, not turning someone into a savior or a villain, not expecting them to heal wounds they didn't create. A true relationship doesn't ask one person to carry the emotional weight of two lives. It encourages responsibility on both sides. It recognizes that love doesn't fix everything. It supports healing, but it doesn't replace it. Illusion often shows up as potential, loving who someone could be rather than who they are, waiting for change that never comes, making excuses for behavior that hurts. Truth sees what is, and it makes decisions based on reality, not hope alone. Love without truth becomes self-betrayal. Staying in something that harms you while calling it commitment is not loyalty, it's fear dressed as devotion. In a true relationship, boundaries are respected, not negotiated every time they become inconvenient. Boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines for safety. They protect individuality. They prevent resentment. Truth honors boundaries because it values the person, not just the relationship. Illusion crosses boundaries and calls it passion. Truth pauses and asks permission. Being truthful also means accepting that love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes truth reveals incompatibility. Sometimes it shows that paths diverge, and walking away with honesty is more loving than staying in deception. A true relationship doesn't trap, it doesn't guilt, it doesn't manipulate. It allows freedom, even when that freedom is painful. Truth asks you to look at yourself as much as you look at the other person, to examine your patterns, your triggers, your fears, it as chaos, whether you're loving from fullness or from lack. Whether you're choosing connection or avoiding loneliness, a true relationship reflects you back to yourself, not always gently, but always clearly. When truth is present, love becomes less dramatic and more meaningful, less about highs and lows, more about stability and depth. You stop chasing intensity and start valuing peace. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You stop mistaking inconsistency for mystery. And in that clarity, love matures. A true relationship isn't perfect. It's real. It has misunderstandings. It has moments of distance. It has silence that needs patience and words that need courage. But it also has repair. It has accountability. It has forgiveness that isn't rushed and trust that isn't forced. Truth doesn't promise forever. It promises presence. It promises effort. It promises to try even when certainty is impossible. It understands that love is a choice made repeatedly, not a feeling that sustains itself. And choice requires awareness. Awareness requires honesty. When two people commit to truth, they create something rare, a space where masks fall away, where vulnerability isn't exploited, where love isn't a transaction, where being yourself doesn't cost you the relationship. And maybe that's what a true relationship really is. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of pretending. Not the guarantee of permanence, but the guarantee of sincerity. Not perfection, but presence. Not illusion, but the courage to see and be seen without turning away. When the image isn't ideal, when the answers aren't clear, when the future feels uncertain, when all that exists is this moment of honesty between two people who choose to stay open, who choose truth, even when it asks them to confront parts of themselves they'd rather avoid, who understand that real connection is built not on what feels good all the time, but on what is real, what is grounded, what can withstand silence, disagreement, time, and change, what doesn't disappear when the excitement fades, what doesn't need to be exaggerated to feel alive. what doesn't rely on illusion to survive, what remains when all the noise is stripped away and only truth is left between two human beings still learning, still imperfect, still choosing to show up without masks, without guarantees, without pretending to be anything other than what they are in that moment, breathing, honest, present, and willing to continue even when the path ahead is unclear, even when certainty is replaced by commitment to truth itself, even when love is quiet, steady, and unremarkable to the outside world, but deeply anchoring on the inside where trust grows slowly, where understanding deepens over time, where connection isn't rushed or forced, where truth becomes the foundation that everything else rests on, where love no longer needs illusion to feel meaningful, where being real becomes enough, where staying honest becomes the highest form of respect, where the relationship exists not as an escape from reality, but as a place where reality can be faced together, where truth is not feared but welcomed, where silence is safe, where words matter, where actions align, where presence replaces performance, where love is no longer something you chase, but something you practice daily through honesty, patience, and the willingness to remain open even when it easier to close off, even when vulnerability feels risky, even when the outcome is unknown, even when all you can offer is your truth in that moment and the courage to stand by it without knowing exactly where it will lead, without demanding certainty, without needing guarantees, just choosing to be real, choosing truth, choosing to remain present in a relationship that values honesty over illusion and reality over fantasy and connection over fear and authenticity over perfection and depth over distraction and meaning over noise and substance over appearance, and sincerity over performance, and truth over everything else that tries to imitate love but cannot replace it, because without truth there is no foundation, and without foundation nothing lasting can stand. And so the relationship continues not because it is effortless, but because it is real, and because truth, once chosen, becomes something you return to again and again, even when it challenges you, even when it asks you to grow, even when it forces you to confront discomfort, even when it removes illusions you once relied on, even when it strips away what is false and leaves you standing with nothing but honesty, awareness, and the quiet understanding that this is what real connection feels like when all pretending ends and what remains is simply two people willing to meet each other exactly where they are, without needing to escape into fantasy or hide behind expectations or distort reality to feel loved, trusting that truth itself is enough to hold what they are building together as they continue forward without certainty but with clarity, without guarantees but with integrity, without illusion but with presence, without pretending that love is easy, only knowing that love rooted in truth is worth the courage it requires and worth the patience it demands and worth the vulnerability it asks for as they remain in that space of honesty, choosing again and again to stay grounded in what is real rather than what is convenient, what is authentic rather than what is impressive, what is lasting rather than what is temporary, allowing the relationship to exist as something living, evolving, imperfect, and true without trying to finalize it, define it, or conclude it, continuing instead in that shared understanding that truth is not a destination but a practice that unfolds with time, experience, and the willingness to remain open even when the path ahead remains unwritten. A true relationship is built on respect long before romance ever enters the room. Romance is easy to create. It thrives on attraction, words, gestures, and timing. Respect is quieter. It reveals itself slowly through consistency, restraint, and awareness. Romance can be performed. Respect cannot. You either have it or you don't. And without respect, no amount of affection can sustain what people call love. Respect is what remains when excitement fades and reality takes its place. Respect begins with how you see the other person when they are not at their best. Not when they are confident, charming, or aligned with your desires, but when they are tired, uncertain, overwhelmed, or different from you. A true relationship does not reduce someone to their usefulness, their beauty, or their ability to meet expectations. It sees them as a complete human being with autonomy, history, boundaries, and a life that existed before you and will continue beyond you. In relationships lacking respect, love becomes a negotiation. Affection is given and withdrawn as leverage. Kindness is conditional. Listening only happens when it benefits the listener. But in a true relationship, respect is not a tool. It is the baseline. You don't threaten to leave, to be heard. You don't need to raise your voice to matter. You don't need to diminish the other person to feel significant. Respect shows up in small moments that don't look dramatic from the outside. It's how disagreements are handled without humiliation. It's how privacy is honored even when curiosity exists. It's how time is valued. It's how consent is understood, not as permission reluctantly given, but as enthusiasm freely offered. Respect doesn't rush intimacy. It doesn't pressure vulnerability. It allows trust to develop naturally. A true relationship understands that attraction does not entitle you to access. Caring about someone does not give you ownership over their emotions, decisions, or body. Respect recognizes where you end and the other person begins. It does not try to cross that line in the name of closeness. It understands that love grows stronger with boundaries, not weaker. Many people confuse jealousy with passion and control with care. They believe intensity proves investment. But respect does not need to monitor, restrict, or dominate. It trusts without surveillance. It supports without suffocating. It does not demand proof of loyalty through sacrifice of individuality. A true relationship does not ask you to give up your voice to keep harmony. It values difference as much as agreement. Respect also means accountability, owning harm without justification, apologizing without defensiveness, changing behavior rather than explaining it away. In a true relationship, apologies are not strategies to restore comfort, they are acknowledgments of impact. Respect understands that intention does not erase effect. It listens when the other person says they were hurt, even if that pain was unintentional. Romance often focuses on how someone makes you feel. Respect focuses on how you treat them regardless of how you feel. Feelings fluctuate. Attraction ebbs and flows. Respect remains steady. It guides behavior when emotions are unclear. It prevents love from becoming reckless. It keeps connection grounded when desire alone would lead to damage. In a true relationship, respect allows both people to grow without fear. Growth is not seen as a threat. Independence is not interpreted as distance. Success is not met with insecurity. Respect celebrates evolution rather than competing with it. It understands that love is not proven by proximity alone, but by support even when paths temporarily diverge. Disrespect often hides behind humor, sarcasm, or honesty without empathy. But respect is intentional. It chooses words carefully. It recognizes power dynamics. It notices when silence is needed and when reassurance matters. It does not weaponize vulnerability. What is shared in trust is never used for advantage later. A true relationship is a place where emotional safety is protected, not exploited. Respect also includes self-respect. A relationship cannot be healthy if one person constantly abandons themselves to maintain connection. Respect allows you to say no without guilt, to express discomfort without fear, to walk away from what diminishes you without being labeled disloyal. A true relationship does not punish boundaries, it honors them. Romance can make promises. Respect keeps them realistic. It does not exaggerate commitment to secure attachment. It does not future fake to maintain control. It stays honest about capacity, availability, and limitations. Respect does not make someone feel foolish for believing in words. It aligns words with action. When respect exists, conflict becomes constructive rather than destructive. The goal is not to win, but to understand, not to overpower, but to resolve, not to be right, but to be fair. Even in anger, respect remains present. Voices may rise, but dignity stays intact. A true relationship does not leave emotional wreckage. After every disagreement, respect means recognizing that love does not give you the right to fix someone. Support is offered, not imposed. Advice is given when invited, not forced. Growth is encouraged, not demanded. A true relationship walks beside rather than ahead. It does not drag someone toward a version of themselves that serves your needs more than theirs. In relationships without respect, romance becomes exhausting. It demands constant reassurance. It thrives on drama. It mistakes chaos for chemistry. But respect brings calm. It creates a sense of being held rather than chased. It replaces anxiety with trust. It allows love to mature into something steady instead of volatile. Respect also shows in how endings are handled. Not every relationship is meant to last forever, but how it ends matters. A true relationship does not rewrite history to justify departure. It does not devalue what once mattered to ease guilt. It leaves with honesty and care, acknowledging what was real without turning it into something ugly. Respect understands that people are not interchangeable. It does not threaten replacement during conflict. It does not compare partners to provoke insecurity. It does not use attention from others as leverage. A true relationship is grounded in presence, not fear of loss. When respect leads, romance becomes deeper rather than louder. Gestures feel meaningful rather than performative. Words carry weight rather than urgency. Touch feels safe rather than demanding. Intimacy becomes a shared experience rather than a transaction. Respect allows love to breathe. It gives space without disconnecting. It stays close without controlling. It listens without fixing. It stays curious without interrogating. It values the relationship without losing sight of the individuals within it. A true relationship understands that respect is not something you demand. It is something you demonstrate daily through consistency, awareness, and care. It is how you speak about the person when they are not present, how you represent them in their absence, how you protect their dignity even when emotions are high. Without respect, romance becomes noise. With respect, even silence feels meaningful. Even routine feels connected. Even ordinary moments feel anchored. A true relationship does not rely on grand displays to prove its worth. It rests on the quiet confidence that both people are seen, valued, and considered. Respect before romance is not a rejection of passion. It is what allows passion to exist without harm. It is what keeps desire from becoming entitlement. It is what transforms attraction into something sustainable. And when respect is present, love no longer feels like something you must defend or explain. It feels solid. It feels intentional. It feels like a place where you can exist fully without shrinking, without performing, without fearing that being honest will cost you connection, where care is mutual, dignity is preserved, and the relationship continues not because of fantasy or intensity, but because both people choose again and again to treat each other with consideration, restraint, empathy, and integrity, allowing love to exist as something grounded and real rather than dramatic and fragile, something built on how two people show up rather than how intensely they feel, something that does not need constant validation to survive, some thing that grows quietly through respect expressed in actions, choices, and consistency, something that does not rush to define itself but reveals its strength over time, through steadiness, through fairness, through patience, through the refusal to harm what you care about even when emotions run high, through the understanding that love without respect is temporary, but respect creates a foundation strong enough to hold affection, intimacy, commitment, and trust as they evolve together, continuing forward without needing to conclude, finalize, or resolve, simply remaining present in the ongoing practice of choosing respect as the first language of love, the quiet standard that shapes every interaction, every disagreement, every moment of closeness, every pause, every return, allowing the relationship to exist as something lived rather than performed, something honored rather than consumed, something that remains grounded in mutual regard rather than fleeting romance, continuing in that space where care is deliberate, boundaries are honored, dignity is protected, and love unfolds not as a rush but as a steady commitment to treating each other well without needing to reach an ending or closure or final statement, just continuing in that shared understanding that respect is not a phase or a condition, but the constant presence that allows everything else to exist and endure. A true relationship is not about possession, it is about growth. Not growth as an idea, not growth as something people talk about to sound evolved, but growth as a lived process that changes how two people exist with each other over time. Possession wants certainty. Growth accepts movement. Possession needs control. Growth requires trust. When love is built around possession, it becomes fragile, defensive, and fearful. When it is built around growth, it becomes resilient, adaptive, and alive. Growth begins with the understanding that no one belongs to you. People choose you, and that choice only has meaning when it is freely made again and again. A relationship rooted in growth does not rely on obligation to survive. It does not use guilt, fear, or dependency as glue. It understands that staying matters most when leaving is possible. Possession tries to remove that possibility. Growth respects it. In a true relationship, growth is not treated as betrayal. Change is not seen as rejection. Becoming more yourself is not interpreted as moving away. Growth understands that individuals evolve, and love must be spacious enough to evolve with them. Possession wants you frozen in the version that felt safe. Growth wants you honest about who you are becoming, even when that honesty is uncomfortable. Many relationships collapse not because love disappears, but because growth is punished. Curiosity is met with suspicion. Independence is met with insecurity. Ambition is met with control. But a true relationship does not compete with your growth. It does not ask you to choose between love and becoming. It understands that a fulfilled individual brings more depth, not less, into connection. Growth requires patience. It is uneven. One person may evolve faster in one area, the other in something else. A relationship built on possession keeps score. It demands symmetry at all times. Growth allows imbalance without resentment. It trusts that movement will find its rhythm if both people remain committed to honesty and effort. A true relationship does not fear distance when distance is necessary for reflection, healing, or clarity. Possession panics at space. Growth understands that closeness without space suffocates. Time apart is not abandonment. Silence is not rejection. Growth sees space as something that can strengthen connection rather than threaten it. Growth also requires responsibility. You cannot outsource your healing to your partner. A true relationship supports growth but does not replace personal work. It does not expect love to erase trauma, insecurity, or fear. It encourages self-awareness rather than dependency. Possession wants to be needed. Growth wants to be chosen. When growth leads, conflict changes shape. Disagreements are not signs of failure. They are information. They reveal where values differ, where communication needs refinement, where understanding is incomplete. Possession turns conflict into proof of disloyalty. Growth turns it into opportunity for alignment. A relationship rooted in growth does not rush milestones to create security. It does not use labels, timelines, or promises to bypass emotional work. It allows commitment to deepen naturally as trust develops. Possession wants guarantees before connection is strong enough to support them. Growth lets commitment emerge from consistency rather than pressure. Growth requires humility, being willing to admit that you don't know everything, being open to feedback without defensiveness, being capable of changing behavior rather than protecting ego. In a true relationship, growth is mutual. One person does not become the teacher while the other becomes the project. They learn together, often through mistakes. Possession often disguises itself as devotion. It says, "If you love me, you won't change." Growth says, "If you love me, you'll let me change and stay curious about who I am becoming. A true relationship does not mourn old versions of a partner as if they are lost. It welcomes new versions with interest rather than fear. Growth also means recognizing when a relationship itself needs to change. The way you connect at one stage of life may not serve another. A true relationship is flexible enough to renegotiate roles, expectations, and needs. Possession clings to outdated dynamics. Growth updates them. In a growth-based relationship, love is not measured by sacrifice alone. Sacrifice without growth becomes resentment. Growth ensures that what is given does not erase the giver. Both people remain whole, even as they build something together. Growth demands courage. It requires facing uncomfortable truths about compatibility, timing, and capacity. Sometimes growth reveals that love is real, but alignment is not. Possession ignores this and forces continuation. Growth respects reality, even when it hurts. A true relationship does not fear outgrowing patterns that no longer serve it. It does not cling to suffering out of loyalty. It understands that staying stagnant for the sake of togetherness is not commitment, it is avoidance. Growth allows joy to change form. Early excitement becomes deeper companionship. Novelty becomes familiarity. Possession mourns the loss of intensity. Growth values the stability that replaces it. A true relationship does not chase constant highs, it builds something sustainable. Growth also protects individuality. You are not absorbed into the relationship. Your interests, friendships, and inner world remain intact. Possession sees these as threats. Growth sees them as nourishment. In a true relationship, love does not demand exclusivity from life itself. It does not ask to be your only source of meaning, joy, or fulfillment. It takes its place among many meaningful aspects of a full life. Possession wants to be everything. Growth understands that being one important part is enough. Growth requires trust in uncertainty. There are no guarantees that people will grow in the same direction. A true relationship accepts this risk rather than denying it. Possession tries to eliminate risk through control. Growth chooses faith without illusion. When growth is present, love becomes less about holding on and more about walking alongside, not dragging, not pushing, not restraining, just moving together, adjusting pace, sometimes leading, sometimes following, sometimes pausing, always aware that connection is not proven by how tightly you hold, but by how freely you allow movement without breaking trust. A relationship built on growth does not end the moment discomfort appears. It stays curious longer, it listens deeper, it reflects more honestly, but it also knows when staying means shrinking. Growth does not romantic eyes endurance. It values well-being. Growth transforms love into a practice rather than a possession, something you participate in consciously, something that requires attention, intention, and renewal. Possession wants love to be owned. Growth wants it to be lived. A true relationship does not promise that everything will work out. It promises effort, awareness, and honesty as things unfold. It understands that growth is unpredictable, but stagnation is certain when fear leads. When two people commit to growth, love stops being a cage and becomes a path, not always smooth, not always clear, but open. Open to change, open to truth, open to becoming more rather than holding on to less. And in that openness, the relationship continues, not as something defined by control or permanence, but by presence and evolution, by the willingness to meet each other again and again as different versions shaped by time, experience, and reflection, choosing curiosity over fear, movement over stagnation, honesty over comfort, allowing love to exist without ownership, without guarantees, without restriction, trusting that what grows freely carries more meaning than what is held tightly, remaining in that shared space where connection is not forced to stay the same, where change is not a threat but a signal of life, where love is not measured by how much is possessed, but by how much growth is possible together, continuing forward without needing to resolve or conclude, simply existing in the ongoing process of becoming, side by side, aware that true connection is not about keeping someone unchanged, but about walking with them as they evolve, without trying to control the direction, without to secure the outcome without turning love into something that must be guarded against loss, choosing instead to remain open, present, and willing to grow within the relationship as it keeps unfolding in real time.